Stefan, it's a delight to have you here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Tell me, how did you come up with the idea of putting a camera on the end of a stick? Where did Polecam come from?
To be perfectly honest, it's nothing new. From the day the box brownie, when somebody wanted a higher camera, they stuck it on the end of a stick or any way to raise it up. What I was doing is I was, at the time, working on the windsurfing and the snowboard world tours. So I was either on a beach or up a mountain, which, you know, as a 20-something-year-old, young 30,
that's pretty cool.
It's a pretty cool job. It was a lot of fun. I was directing a series of windsurfing commercials, new product commercials. We were out in Maui in Hawaii, and we then moved on to Aruba in the Caribbean and then to the Cape Verde Islands, on the road for 3 months. And one of the briefs from my producer, Neil Pride, the Neil Pride company, was to be really wide-angle lenses right alongside the windsurfers. They weren't interested in onboard, because the trouble with these onboards is you get no sense of actually being there, because the camera moves with the unit. So when you watch Formula One, for example, you don't have any real idea of how they're getting... The helmet camera is the first time, but the onboard on the car, you don't see it. Anyway, we did a load of shooting, tracking, and one of the problems, we played the footage back that night in the house, and the guy was saying, we've got real trouble here. We've got the wake of the boat in the shot, and you're also disturbing the wind pattern on the sail. He says, you're going to have to back off. And I said, well, if I back off, I'm going to have to zoom in. And you specifically said super wide angle. And he made the immortal words to me was, well, you're the director, sort it out. And I was like, I can't change the laws of physics. If I'm further away, I said, well, why don't we get a Minicam, stick it on the end of the carbon fiber windsurfing mast and hang it out there? And he said, fine, let's try it. And we did. And the pictures were stunning, absolutely stunning. But it turned into a nightmare because we couldn't pan and tilt the camera. We played with this thing for 3 months. We had batteries and cables and everything. I got back home, I went into my cellar at home, and I said, got a CCTV pan and tilt unit, had a harmonica bracelet with a little monitor on here, and I built this thing, and 7 days and 7 nights, got this thing working using a weed whacker, a strimmer harness, had this whole thing working, and great, let's take it outside. And I couldn't get it out the cellar because I'd built it corner to corner. It's a bit like building the car in your living room. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done here? Anyway, chopped it in half, took it out. And I used to do a lot of work also with Sky Sports and MTV. And they saw it and they're like, this is really cool. We're getting different angles, you know, in the pit lane for the superbikes, MTV working on the stage. And then Disney Studios in Spain said, can we buy one? To have a super lightweight crane with these Minicams in a studio, all these children running around, makes a massive difference, you know. And I was like, well, I've only got the one. Well, can you make some? And long story short, you know, 16 years later, here we are, 600 rigs later, and it's developed, it's moved.
The great thing about them is you can take them straight onto the street. You don't need a license for these, do you?
No, exactly. It's very quick, rapid deployment, really easy. The real key's been Minicams, which is obviously what we're here to talk about. And from a very early day, we were with Toshiba, and Milko is here from Toshiba, and we were using the standard definition 4x3 cameras. Well, again, technology's moving on, you know, and we're seeing massive changes. So we've got the new HD5 from Toshiba, which is a stunning, I mean, frightening quality of pictures we're seeing out of this camera. Fujinon made a new lens to complement it. We've got Camera Core here, Sean, with the cue ball system. They've got an HD mini zoom, which is, again, it's been all over the Olympics, and Sean's got a new toy, which I'll let him introduce very soon. And then, really, what's been personally for me very exciting is now been working with Felix McGrath here from Antelope. Now they've done and have been doing for many years big, proper, high-speed cameras. And what this has really been about is about this live interaction. Now, big cameras, nah, not interested. The whole point of Polecam was to be small, lightweight, rapid deployments, you know, and what with the evolution of the DSLR has made this massive change. We've had to go bigger heads. But Felix has done this fantastic thing where a tiny little high-speed minicam. So it will go full 2K, 350 350 frames a second, up to 2K, but we've been doing live events with this.
I've seen your demo actually on the stand with the desk toy.
Yes.
And the waterfall.
Yeah.
Very, very impressive.
It is.
Especially what you're doing with it.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I mean, what I will do is I'll introduce Felix here at this point, really, because Felix not only has the company that manufactures, but he is a live OB director as well. And he saw the Polecam. I'll leave it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, when Stefan, when we met for the first time, which is probably, I don't know, it's not that long ago, right? It's 4 years ago,
Yeah,
maybe?
4 years ago.
In 2006, we started to develop these big cameras, which were, you know, line cameras and heavy on tripods, and they couldn't really go into the positions and the vantage points where a small camera can go. And then when Stefan showed us his Polecam, we were quite interested in putting our small technology onto his heads, so we get the possibility to actually find new vantage points in different kinds of sports. And as Stefan mentioned, I'm the senior director of the Ladies European Tour Golf. And golf is also a sport that cannot be reinvented in terms of vantage points. It's like soccer or football, as you call it. How can you bring new cameras into new positions? It's difficult to do. But if you want to look different to, you know, your competitors, you have to find a way to do it. So we brought his camera out to the Duel at Ginger Lake. That's an event in China where Tiger and Rory battle each other out on a one-day event. And we had his Polecam plus a Polecam, like the Pico, the small mini camera. And we flew into positions nobody has ever seen in golf.
I think they refer to it as an analysis camera more. So the fact that we could do the live shots, but then overhead, here we are, I'm just seeing, overhead, this is actually from Dubai, isn't it?
This is the ladies' finals in Dubai, ladies' masters. That's the big season finale that takes place in Emirates Golf Club in Dubai every December. And as you can see, it's not just the slow-mo replay, it's the movement of the Polecam itself. I mean, you can bring that camera into a position that no other camera can go to. It's almost like a real full-size jib, but it's lighter, it's smaller, it doesn't distract the players that much. So the players loved it too. I mean, they came back to the OB truck and wanted this footage, and it's a good combination.
We did some great setup shots as well, and Felix being the director, it was a great help. So we did some, on the practice days, I'd actually go in front, and they'd tell me, like this shot here, this is a classic, they'd tell me, the ball is going to go this way, but if you want to move in front, as long as you don't cross this line, now obviously we can't do this live during an event, but what's different now is not only the high speed, it's the fact the camera's moving as well. And that's what creates this dynamic, that's what creates this massive difference.
Is this the only high-speed minicam available on the market at the moment?
Yes, it's the only, I mean, let's put it this way. There is other cameras, even your iPhone 5S can shoot high frame rates now. But certainly those cameras are not made for broadcast. Yeah. And the Antelope Pico is the only mini camera that gives you a true HD SDI live video output. And on the second channel, it gives you replays in 1080i up to 340 frames a second. So yes, it is the only high-speed camera available on the market in that size.
It's a grown-up professional production tool. High speed's capable with, you know, we've seen the GoPro come into our industry, you know, and it's been the cause of, for us, with the likes of Toshiba, we've seen sales plummet because the GoPro's come out there. How can you argue with a $300, 300-pound camera? The GoPro are now manufacturing 300,000 units a month. It's the biggest selling camera ever in the world. It's the only camera that I've ever seen that doesn't have a 1/4-inch thread as standard.
I've got to say, I do enjoy using mine when
and I totally agree with you.
Get some great shots.
But what we've seen is now is a real change, because there are those that will use the GoPro. I've done Red Bull Formula One stuff where they black tack the GoPro camera onto the car. Car comes back in, camera's missing. The guy goes out with his phone to go locate the camera, finds it in the rumble strip, and there it is, still recording. But if you want real proper onboard quality, genuine, you know, for OB, then you've got to start talking to Camera Core, for example.
I think, picking up on what the guy said, Richie, what's really important is two things. First of all, what Felix was saying is, which it's very difficult these days to bring a new angle to a sport, but at the same time, the GoPros and the likes of high-end digital SLRs have brought a real challenge to the conventional broadcast market. I think we'd all agree, because they can do it cheaper, they can do it more portable, it's accessible to general members of the public on the show floor today. So within the broadcast market, we either do one or two things. We either go and run and hide and put our head in our hands and cry,
right, yeah.
or you do what Polecam, what Antelope have done, what CameraCore are doing, which is in effect, you reinvent yourself. So what's happening now is Minicams are no longer the sort of nice to haves of high-end coverage, and I think that's a key thing. It's high-end coverage. What CameraCore is interested in is high-end coverage. We're not interested in GoPros. We're not interested in your semi-domestic market. You know, we've just had, you know, over 150 of our cameras out at the recent Winter Olympics in Sochi. Now,
are you allowed to say that?
No, of course
Don't
not.
you mean the games
Sorry,
that
the Winter
happened in the
Winter
Black Sea?
The Winter
Oh,
Games
Games
that
in
happened,
Russia.
yeah, the Winter Games that recently took place somewhere not in the UK. But it's all about high quality. So from that point of view, if you take a number of examples, the cue ball was used throughout on a number of key venues in the host coverage. Now, it's a small camera. It can get into places where a lot of other large high-end cameras can't. But
it's also
got
very
that quality.
aesthetic as well, isn't
it's
it?
Very
it's very
aesthetic.
pleasing.
It's basically it's a 15-centimetre sphere. But then if you then take the Polecam,
The cue ball is what we see on Big Brother.
yes,
programs
yeah,
like
yeah,
Big Brother,
basically Big Brother.
I'm a Celebrity.
There's over 68 cue balls in the Big Brother household, and you know, if you then look at sort of mini cams becoming an integral part of coverage, if you take, for example, the opening shot on the live skiing at that recent winter event, it was on a Polecam. Now, a conventional camera, there was no way on the men's downhill at the starting gate, when we are talking about 1/100th of a second difference, that you're going to get a full-size cameraman with a full-end broadcast camera in there.
Or even a full-size
Yeah.
crane.
You've got some
Conversely,
footage there, haven't you?
yeah, you know, I mean, we've got some photos on here which basically show, you know,
If we
the
just
sort of,
hold it up to the camera, that would
So-
be...
I think if you hold it up to the Polecam,
Yeah, hold it
in
up to the
effect-
Polecam, it might pick it up just
Trying
there.
to
There you
sell
go.
in interviews, didn't you? Unbelievable.
So in effect, what you've got there is the opening shot that was as part of a host broadcast, which is on a Polecam. Now, from that point of view, what you're getting is top-end broadcast quality, not GoPro quality. We're talking live broadcast in a small camera, and I think this is where CameraCore, in conjunction with Polecam, sort of take it to the next level. Because what we're doing is we are looking at, you know, for example, places where you can't get a conventional camera, but you put a CameraCore Minicam in, while at the same time you're actually getting the shot that everybody wants to see, but more importantly, it's of the quality that host
And it's-
broadcast
whether it's
operations
gen-lockable
expect.
and then remote control. One of the things that CameraCore have done for many years is remote control. When you have all these multiple cameras, they've got to be color balanced. They've got to look the same. You've got to be able to adjust the iris. You know, Jim Daniels at CameraCore has invented a remote panel, which is what we've used for, I mean, we've sold hundreds of these things. They can control up to 256 Toshiba cameras from one panel.
And you control the colour balance on
You
there
can-
as
yeah,
well,
it's-
even with LED and the dimmers.
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
exactly. And
Yeah.
I think this is different. Picking up on what I said, it's about broadcast quality. Anybody can go and get something like a GoPro, and they are fantastic for what they do. I've got two at home, and they do, you know, they literally do what they say on the tin. But in terms of actually matching mini cams, intercutting them, as Felix will experience as a live OB director, with high-end broadcast cameras like Sony's, Ikigami's, Panasonic's, and Grass Valley's, you need that broadcast flexibility to colour match, and that's where, for example, CameraCore uses the Toshiba, and the quality of that Toshiba allows us to offer that out to directors. And the first question a director will say is, I want this camera to go into this position that I can't get a conventional camera in.
But it's got to look right.
it's gotta
Exactly,
look
but when
okay,
I cut
exactly.
it, am I going to go, great shot? Oh, well, don't like
It's
that.
not an effect shot anymore. A Minicam has
Yeah.
become mainstream part.
And picking,
Now,
picking up on your point, which, you know, something like Big Brother, over 95% of the content on that show is shot on minicams.
So, okay, we're looking at documentaries and reportage sort of shots. What about dramas? Okay, where does the Minicam fit in there?
We've done quite a few dramas where we've actually assigned, and this example of one of our new products. This is our mini right-angle camera, which we basically affectionately called the Meerkat, where it's wearable. So, for example, this is used as a ref cam on some sports. It's used on drama. We recently did a drama for a major UK broadcaster as a pilot, where basically that camera was put onto a harness, with a solid-state recorder, literally on an inside suit pocket, and the presenter literally went down and knocked on the door of his unsuspecting landlord to try and sort of, doorstep him, and one of those was used.
But to come back to the drama, if you want to do in-car filming, you're talking either car rigs, motion rigs, low loaders, and all this sort of thing. These cost money, they take time, they're expensive, and it's time is the key thing. So if you can take a camera and stick it inside the car, you don't have to put on these huge external rigs, and the quality is there to intercut within the other cameras, then they will use it. We've just had an ITN production just done 4 weeks in South America, and it's basically guys going around, it's all for the run-up to the World Cup soccer. There were 3 in-car cameras, they're all Toshiba. And what we're excited about now is your new toy. Brand new IK-HD5.
And this is progressive as well, isn't it?
This is progressive. Thank you very much, Stefan. And it's been a long story, as Stefan mentioned in the beginning. The history of Toshiba in broadcasting is not the usual history of a camera manufacturer. Toshiba comes from a completely different field, not exactly inside a car, but inside the human body. Toshiba has been for more than 20 years started in the minimal invasive surgery, where color is obviously very important. And then I don't know all the ends of it, but Stefan was right in the beginning, about 10, maybe a little bit more than 10 years ago, when somebody saw that actually color is not only important in the medical business, in the medical imaging field, but also in broadcasting. And that's how Toshiba actually entered the market, largely on the vehicle of Polecam. And Stefan's name is intimately interlaced, not progressed, but interlaced with Toshiba. And as I said, the story is about 10 years, and it started in the analog standard definition field. And I fast forward to today, to a camera that we have, which is called IK-HD5. It's a few generation old, a few generation new, and it's our first signature microprism-based 3-chip camera based on CMOS, 1080 progressive.
So you've got the clarity there.
You have the full resolution on 3 channels.
Light.
Every channel has a separate high-definition color, and not many manufacturers can say that. And as I said, Toshiba doesn't come from the broadcasting world. Toshiba comes from another world because of Stefan. And obviously, when I have to mention another name here, when I speak about Toshiba, one has to mention Paul Rogers as well, because he's also, together with Stefan, one of the most important people behind the requirements that the broadcasting field puts on the table, and Toshiba developed this camera in the end. I myself haven't seen the camera too much. I had it for about 15 minutes, and it had to be shipped to him.
I stole it from him. Paul and I stole it. We needed to get hold of it really quickly.
It's on the stand.
Yeah.
And I would welcome everybody to see it. I would like to see it as well. There is a huge line of people there right now. We don't have it here, unfortunately, but I'm sure Stefan is going to make it.
What is your stand number, Stefan?
It's C1.
C1.
Right at the front, right at the entrance.
And you get your hands on it
what's a big difference for us on this camera is the Toshibas that we've used for many years. Yes, they've been 16:9, but they were interlaced only. And of course, the world we're in now is progressive, and we've been screaming to have a progressive Toshiba camera, because the thing is that the camera quality was so good, and we said, oh, you can convert it in post and do whatever. No, people want native 25p or 50p out of it, and so this is a very exciting camera. Like I said, like Milko was saying, comes from the ophthalmic imaging market. But what we're saying to them is like, yes, you may sell many into this territory, but just look at these functions within the camera and improve those bits, and you can sell many more. And it's been great to work with Toshiba over the years to get these changes made. But coming back to the overall subject, Minicams are now mainstream production. And of course, with the likes of GoPro and digital stills cameras, we're all cameramen.
Dip them in and pull them out. But
yeah.
What's been your biggest challenge in terms of using a minicam? What's been one of the weirdest places you've ever had to put one?
Are we allowed to?
Yeah, I'm going
to say
that
one.
Can we talk about this after 9 o'clock tonight? After the watershed.
I mean, I have to say, it's actually harping back to some of the to Toshiba's background. As somebody that comes from a background of extreme sports, I was a skiing cameraman, an aerial cameraman, motorbikes. I actually love medical filming. It's fascinating. And to fly the Polecam with these small cameras over an operating theatre, and it's not for television, this is for training other surgeons. That's fascinating. And I will never forget the first time we had a major bleeder. And when you see it in the films and it's going everywhere, well, that's what it was like. I mean, it was unbelievable. For me, another one up in the Arctic, filming for National Geographic, the Polecam mounted on the nose of a boat, chasing walrus through the ice pack. Not only was it extreme conditions to work in, and the equipment worked perfectly, what an honor and a privilege to be able to see that sort of thing. Because you can't buy that sort of trip. You're working with people. We spent 3 days hunting down the animals where they are. And then to find this beach with 2,000 of them, we then had to camp downwind of them because they'll smell you. We had a really lovely high quality camera on the end and chasing them through the ice packs. But, working with Felix recently, you can't knock being in Dubai in December, bit of sunshine.
Absolutely not.
On the golf course.
And you know what, he's not a bad guy to work for.
I heard different though.
Yeah, but hey, listen, we love gin and tonic, don't we? And more importantly, we love Grey Goose Martini, 3 olives, straight up, very cold.
Don't we all? That's where I'll be next. Now, I've seen you've sent your guys all over the world to some extreme locations. I mean, I've seen them hanging off the cliff in Thailand for the jumping.
Yeah.
All sorts of. The great thing about these Polecams is that you don't need a license. They just fit in the back of the car.
Yeah.
You just bring them out, set them up, and away you go.
In its box is less, even at 8 meters, is less than 32 kilos. So, okay, that's excluding counterweights, but you pick those up locally or use our rubble sack, which just fill it up with dirt when you get there. So you can genuinely fly with this stuff. You don't have to cargo it ahead of the event. You can genuinely fly with it. And, like I said, we have them going up the Amazon, up the mountains with Sochi and what have you, And that's the thing. They can get up to the start for the Alpine, and they just build this hut in a matter of hours. The equipment's got to be there, and as soon as it's finished, it gets dismantled and moves to its next location.
And the poles are they carbon fibre, the
Yeah.
poles themselves.
Yeah.
So they go quite a length, really. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously in extreme weather conditions, they obviously must move. In terms of the camera technology you're using, are you picking up that movement on the end?
To a degree, in some elements.
So how
One
can
of
you
the
get away
hardest
with
problems is it is operator-led as well. Let's take a step back. We talk about Steadicam. Steadicam, as I was a Steadicam operator in my previous life, it is a fantastic piece of equipment, but it's down to the pilot, unfortunately, And even the setting up of the cameras. I've heard people say, I don't use Toshiba because it's terrible, Well, what's wrong with it? Oh, we can't get a picture out of it. We've had it arrive back, and they've got 10,000 shutters switched into it. We work really hard to make the best equipment possible, but it is in the hands of the operator. So there is an element of where technology will help us, whether it be gyro stabilization or any of this sort of thing. But at the end of the day, you have to know how to use the equipment. And, I've spent my life now really with Minicams, and I'm passionate about it. I do enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. As owning Polecam and manufacturing these things, I still go out, like working with Felix and working with Camera Corps, I still go out and use my equipment because I think it's so important to know how to do it. And it is down to it. So, for those that are thinking of buying a piece of kit like this, yes, you can pick it up and get pictures out of it straight away. That's one of the beauties of the Toshiba camera. You take it out the box, turn it on, fantastic image straight away. But you've got to spend time with it. You've got to know how to use this kit. You've got to spend time with it, you've got to learn with it, and ask questions.
And do you run training courses as well?
We do it all the time. All the time.
It's the same with Camera Corps as well to that extent. I agree with Stefan and Richie in that, the GoPro generation is great. It's the plug and play, and the cue ball, for example, is plug and play, as Stefan will back me up on. But ultimately, we send equipment out with operators because ultimately it's about getting the best out of the kit that you've got. And if you ultimately want broadcast standard rather than what we call semi-pro standard, you've got to have some element of understanding. We're in a similar situation as Stefan. We get equipment back and people are saying, well, it didn't quite do what I wanted it to do. When you then get it back in the warehouse, you go through the settings, it's not set up as best it could. So in most cases, like Stefan, we will wet hire our gear, so it comes with people. And I think what Minicams has done, it's brought the domestic into the broadcast and it's mashed it all up together. As so many elements of today's media are, it's just one sort of big melting pot. But ultimately, it requires an element of technical expertise and professionalism and technical understanding, not an immense amount, but this isn't a case of putting something, switching on a digital SLR and just letting it run to get the best out of it. It's getting that balance, and with Minicams, more than ever, I think Stefan will back me up on this, and so will the guys either side of me. It's about the expectation of quality has gone through the roof. And from that point of view, we have got people like GoPro and people like Canon digital SLRs to thank for that. But it's a challenge that's been brought to the broadcast market. And but then what you have is, you have this downward pressure on production budgets where you have people saying, well, I want to get this great shot, but ultimately, I don't want to pay broadcast prices, and you have that constant conundrum.
As a director, you have that all the time, don't you?
Yeah, because you've got production budgets to work to, and ultimately you can't justify a Minicam being used if it's more expensive and not bringing added value to a production, if in a way you could get a line camera or a GoPro at the opposite end of the scale to do the same thing.
And it's a good point that you mentioned quality, because even if you have the budget to bring extra cameras in, and I tell you the truth, I love the Camera Corp solutions that you're offering. We would love to use more of these cameras if we would have the budget, definitely. But then again, quality is extremely important. And if you come up with a great camera that can fly 360 degrees into each and every position on your set, but the quality is not good enough, the budget will definitely...
It's an effects camera then.
Exactly, you don't want that. And that's why I totally agree that you say that the expectations of quality have gone through the roof. But then again, there is products as your products, as Camera Corp's products, the Polecam as well, the Antelope Pico, they deliver very, very high quality. And but then again, you're always measured with these $300 GoPro cameras, which sometimes is quite difficult. And
they look great on a laptop. Blow them up to a 50-inch screen or something else, or trying to go into a cinema or something, that's where the story changes. But you have to be able to justify the use, as Felix says, and that's again why I love this concept of the Polecam with the Antelope Pico. Not only is it a crane that's versatile and can move around, not only is it a live Minicam, but it's also now high speed. You cannot watch any live sporting event today without high speed. It's a must.
You're getting a lot. Basically, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. You're getting the replay.
You had to say it, didn't you?
You are. Because ultimately, production budgets are not getting any bigger, and a camera, like for example the Cue Ball that's got infrared on it, it's got daylight operations on it, the Antelope Pico that's got live and slow-mo. In a way, it's doing the jobs of, for example, 2 or 3 cameras. So whereas the budgets are getting squeezed, you're actually saying, well, we've now got a product, although it might be slightly more expensive than you're used to as a Minicam, you're actually getting a lot more added value out of it. It's actually, you don't have to go and get 2 or 3 line cameras, you just use one Minicam. But I think the challenge will be for us always to get smaller and smaller, to get better and better quality, and not
to get cheaper and cheaper.
But also live, and a key thing that we haven't talked about is post-production. A lot of people love the GoPros, but the problem is, when you then go into post-production, what they don't realise, they want to edit straight away because there's time pressures on budgets, on edits. They then have to put it through a codec. They then have to convert it to be a workable format. Whereas with the Antelope Pico, the Cue Ball, the Toshiba, it can be recorded on any broadcast format, which they don't always think about. They just look at the headline cost of, oh, this is camera X, oh, that's a Minicam, that's a bit expensive. They don't think about the production process further down the line, and I think that's really, really important when ultimately you look at the content that an Antelope Pico creates, and you can get a lot of added value out of it, not only in the live, not only in the replay, but also in a potential 4K offering post-produced in terms of DVD or something else. And when people are necessarily concerned with the live production and the live budget, they're not necessarily thinking of those other elements that could in fact claw revenue through another way.
Any of these cameras got stabilizers built into them or anything like that?
The mounts are the ones that are normally stabilized. I mean, and what you have to be careful of, especially for me from a Polecam point of view, because the crane is moving and the head is moving, you don't want to stop that element of the stabilization. So it's actually, the stabilization will often go through the lens, but you need the lens to then interact with the head, because if the camera moves, because you've intended it to move, and the camera thinks, oh, something's moving, I've got to stabilize it, you end up with the problem. So that's why our carbon fiber is very strong, very stiff. That does a lot of the stabilization for us, and that's the difference between us and a lot of these other aluminium frames that's just bouncing around.
I did notice actually, because I've just come back off a 2.5-month cruise.
Oh dear.
Start to rub the salt into the wound. No, I use a monopod with a little mini camera at the end, and I stuck it out over the side of the ship in extreme weather conditions. Well, I tell you, it was waving all over the place, it was shaking. And I was quite disappointed actually, because it would have been a good shot if it had like some sort of stabilizer in there.
But if you had a carbon fiber monopod with the strength and stability and the lightness, yes, then the aluminium will flex, and it will always flex time and time and time again.
But again, it's that compromise, isn't it? You know, people look at stabilised mounts, and they love the stabilisation. But as Stefan and I know from personal experience working on productions, gyro stabilised mounts are very, very expensive
and complex
and complicated, and require a lot of time to set up and a lot of people to actually administer. So labour and all those costs go up. So on the one hand, they want portability, but as you've highlighted, Richie, on the other hand, they want stability, and it's having that compromise. And this is where I think the Polecam hits it right on the nail, because it's got the portability, but it's got the stability, while at the same time hasn't got the cost and the numerous people associated with stabilised mounts, tracking and everything else that comes with it. So it's always a constant balance, I think. And I think at the moment the minicam market is probably one of the most exciting in broadcast, because it's continually changing. You know, we're even being asked to address the issues of 4K, potentially 8K, super ultra high slow motion, while at the same time, oh, by the way, can it be the size of your hand? Okay, great.
But the quality as well.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
and it's those sort of dynamics that are constantly sort of toing and froing.
The American military have now done a retinal tap. They can actually take the optical image from a live eye and convert it to digital and show it. But the resolution's not there.
Scary how it's all going, isn't it?
You've got a BNC right here.
Yeah.
Well, it's frightening.
It is going to go like that. It's going to go like that. So if you've got any questions you want to ask these guys, I've got Stefan, Felix, Sean and Milko here with me just for the next few minutes. Do tweet in. It is at BroadcastShow, hashtag BVE 2014. Oh, sorry, BVE 14, I believe it is. And don't forget, Jonathan is out and about on our show floor, so if you've got any questions you want to ask him, do feel free to tweet in. Maybe you can't make it down here to Excel in East London, maybe the other end of the country or the other side of the world, and you want to get your hands on a piece of kit, and you want him to demonstrate it. Well, he is a technical director, he will look at it, so all you need to do is just send us in a quick tweet, and if you don't want to tweet, do send us in an email as well. The email address is on the screen. So in terms of minicams then, guys, anything exciting on the pipeline? What's coming up?
I mean, the most frightening thing for us is like, you know, it's 4K. And it's a nightmare, because I think a lot of people talk 4K, but they have no idea of the ramifications of what this means.
And more importantly, it's 4K, not just pre-recorded, but the challenge for all of us, from a directorial, from a facilities point of view, from a hardware point of view, is 4K live. Yeah. And I went to a recent conference before Christmas where 4K and even 8K was discussed, and then they start talking about frame rates of 60 frames, 120 frames, maybe even 240 frames, and suddenly you're looking at bandwidth, data, and oh, by the way, can it still be this size, please?
You know, we're not talking gigabytes anymore, we're talking terabytes of information. You know, I mean, it is frightening.
And we're talking cost as well. Here comes the cost issue as well.
Yeah.
And also, in your environment, like a live environment, 4K is great, but unless you've got the bandwidth within the truck and the disk space to do it, you want, as a director and any viewer, they will want the replay immediately. And the problem is, potentially, the challenge with 4K is the bandwidth to get that replay buffered and get it out as quickly as possible. Yeah. I mean, you talk about new sort of exciting things. Q-Ball 3. Q3, as it will be known, will be launching at NAB. That's a brand new cue ball, brand new camera, brand new lens.
That's coming out this year? Or?
It's coming out it will be at this year's NAB.
So we're really excited about that as well, because you can hang that on a Polecam.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem that cue ball has had over the years with the Sony HD11 module is low light. You've always had to give it a lot of light. Now the performance of this new camera
that's going into the Q3 has increased, massively increased light sensitivity. And as Stefan says, Stefan, we use it quite a lot, so does Stefan, and a lot of our clients do, putting cue balls on Polecams. So it gives you that whole 360-degree pan and tilt.
I mean, you go to a show like this a few years ago when HD first came out, the amount of light that we needed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
I had to wear my sunglasses.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I mean, you take the high speed. I mean, the days of high speed with super bright lights, again, it's frightening.
It has changed,
we were putting ND filters in Dubai on the camera for high speed. I mean, it's
how
fantastic.
technology has changed. Well, it's been great having you all here on the sofa with me here
Thank
today.
you for the opportunity.
So to stop by Polecam, what's your stand number again?
C1.
C1 is
right
where
by
they
the
are.
entrance.
So pop in and see Stefan and the gang here. Now coming up in just a moment, we are going to be looking at Mildred. Apparently Mildred is getting kitted out and we're uncovering Freescreen's new truck. As well as that, we've got shows tomorrow and the following day. From me, that's it. Okay, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. See you later.